Okay. Hello, everybody joining online. Um, and what I'd really like to know before we get started, Cynthia and Sam, you could use the Mentimeter, or you could just put in the chat what your familiarity is with GitHub. I know that you guys worked with it a little bit a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm just curious what you have used it for and how comfortable you are with that. And you can feel free to use the chat or unmute and talk. We've got a pretty small group today, so yeah. Do you both have GitHub accounts? And if so, can you put your username for me in the chat? And if not, then we better go through that. So okay. Beautiful. Sam, I see yours. So I'm gonna head over here. And something that I'm going to do to get started here, and we should be doing this for everybody's GitHub accounts, if you're watching online, is to add you as collaborators here on our HYR-SENSE repository. Cynthia, were you able to make a GitHub account yet?
Oh yes, I already have a GitHub account, and let me see, it's called the HYR-SENSE, I believe, but that may not be the name.
Okay. Let's take a look at here. So I'm going to start adding you. Oh wait, no. 5. Okay. Beautiful. And Sam, I'm going to give you write access, and I will everybody else as well who sends me their information. Let me see if okay. So Cynthia, I am not coming up with yours. Can you go to github.com, put in the chat, and then if you're logged in, you can go to the upper right hand corner and click on this profile picture. It might look like a little square robot right now if you haven't modified it. And then you will see your username right here at the upper right. And while we're doing that, I haven't met a lot of the HYR-SENSE folks before, so I'll just introduce myself a little bit. My name is Elsa Culler, and I do a lot of our curriculum development at EASL, and have had really the privilege and lots of fun working with the NASA folks to develop some of the HYR-SENSE curriculum. And I also teach a internship for tribal college students called STARS, and a professional certificate program for professional graduate students, meaning people who graduated with their bachelor's but are working and wanting to build skills for that. And so I teach a lot of Git and GitHub, and that's what we're going to be working on. And I see, Cynthia, your username here. Beautiful. Okay, I will add you also. Okay, and for folks who are following along online, you can let's see, you can send me an email. My email address is, let's see, I can't send the chat. So I'll type it in here really quick. It's elsa.color@colorado.edu. And so if you're working on this activity later on, you can send me an email and ask me to add you to the HYR-SENSE repository, just like I did for Cynthia and Sam now. Okay. So, I have a couple of activities for us today that are really about learning to collaborate on GitHub. So, I know that a bunch of folks have made websites with GitHub pages, kind of like our HYR-SENSE website here. If I wanted that in the new tab. But we're using version control, which is kind of the technology that works underneath the surface with GitHub, is also a really amazing way to be able to collaborate with other people on code. So I'm going to go here into the pre-trainings and select the Playing with GitHub training here. I'm going to copy and paste this. Oh, and it looks like my formatting didn't quite work out for me, so I'm actually going to pull this. I'll get that fixed for the future, but I'm going to actually pull this up, not on the website, but on GitHub so that we can see my table. So I'm going in here to the docs and the resources and then GitHub collaboration. Okay. So hopefully after today, you'll be able to explain some of the advantages of collaborating using Git, which is version control, and GitHub, which is this website that has a lot of collaboration features. You're going to practice creating something called a pull request in 2 different ways. And then you're going to hopefully be able to identify some common pitfalls of using Git and GitHub that that you can try to avoid or figure out a way around, or at least you'll know if you see them what to do about it. So I have an agenda here. We're actually not going to do this review today where we practice authenticating and cloning a GitHub repository in a HYR-SENSE analysis. And that's because HYR-SENSE is having a maintenance day today, so we won't be able to access the discovery environment. But we can do both of these activities entirely on GitHub on the website here. So the first kind of hour here, we're going to talk a little bit about collaborating on GitHub, and then we're going to use something called a fork and a pull request to collaborate on something that we call the hometowns tabular data file, which is like a CSV or comma separated value data file that we use to, we have a lot of people who come through our workshops, put places on there that are significant to them, and then we can map out all of those different types of places. And then I will do a demo about reviewing and merging pull requests. We'll take a little break. And then we're going to do a very similar workflow, but using something called branches. And I'm going to explain in a moment what the difference is between forks and branches. And so we have a page on the HYR-SENSE website called participants. And it's not showing up. So we'll have to make that show up. But also you will add to that page, which I can show right here. Yeah, it is participant bios and not participants bios. So I'll have to fix that before we get there. But you will add some information about yourself, including a link to that personal portfolio if you have it, into this list, and then it will be available for everybody after the workshop is over. So any questions about the agenda before we get started here?
Hi, Sam here. All right, so I'm trying to, am I able to view this same page that you're on?
Yeah,
I put
the link in for the website, but for some reason the table that I made is not showing up on the website, even though it's showing up here. So it looks a little bit, it looks a little weird. So I don't want resources, pre-training events, and then this page. So this is the link that I sent, which has the same text on it, but you can see that the table here didn't work out. I think it may actually be because, yeah, I don't have a space in here. And the technology that we use to build this website is a little bit pickier than GitHub about this, that it wants you to have a little space before a list or a table or something like that. So you can go ahead and do that. Okay.
okay, here we go. Got it.
Hi, Jason. We're talking about collaborating with GitHub a little bit right now. So I'm going to head over. Oh, we did it again. Okay. So we should have a HYR-SENSE version of this for you guys, but it's very similar to something that we did for a program that we call our data short course. And so you can access this textbook. Let me go ahead and send this link to you all. And you can navigate through. You can also get there. There's some links in the HYR-SENSE page. It looks like my table is still not rendering. So so there's some pages with there's 2 pages here with information about collaborating on GitHub. And then there's also 2 activities here that we're going to do. So I think that you guys probably have seen a lot of this before, but I think it can be pretty complicated using version control at first. And so one thing that we like to show folks who are new to version control is this little comic here, which this is just a really common experience. I don't know if you all have done this before, but like you're working on a collaborative document with people and you want to like take a snapshot of what it looks like at a particular point in time, but then you want to make more changes going forward. And so then you end up adding like a 2 at the end or comments, corrections. And this is a little facetious at the end. But basically you end up with a folder where you've got like 20 different versions of the document all there, and you can't quite tell which any of them are anymore. And it becomes increasingly hard to say like, this is the one we're actually working in. And so version control helps solve this problem for us by saving an entire history of any changes that you've made to a document. And so that is really useful when you're working on your own. It's even more useful when you're working with other people, because there's also a lot of other tools about, like merging work together. And when you're writing a paper, if you like merge some work together and like there's some punctuation that's off, or there's some spelling errors or something like that, it's not a huge deal. I mean, it's not ideal, but like people can still read your paper and understand what you meant. When you're working with code, if some punctuation is off or something is misspelled, then the code doesn't work. And so it's really important when we're working with code on with other people on code, that we be able to merge things together really carefully and then test if they work. And so that's a lot of why we want to be able to use something like version control and like the GitHub platform. It's also true, I mean, certainly from our experience hiring folks at Easel, that having really just about anything up on GitHub is like puts you in a kind of another category when you're applying for jobs, because it shows that you know how to use these tools, but it also is kind of a shorthand for like, oh, you actually probably know how to work with other people on code, and like, just you can say that you've taken a class on code. That doesn't prove to anybody that any of your code has ever worked. Whereas if they can see your code and see what it ran and created, then that really shows what you can do. So so I'm going to move on to this collaboration page, which again is here for your reference. And so at this point, I am going to talk a little bit about some of the collaboration tools that are available on GitHub. So number one is called a pull request, and this is what we're going to be working with today. So a pull request is very much like what it sounds like, except that word pull might be a little bit unfamiliar if you haven't used a lot of version control before. So when we have version control, we have GitHub, and then there's some other computer, in this case, probably HYR-SENSE, that has a copy of your repository. And that copy is not the same as the copy that's on GitHub. And so when we're moving things back and forth between the centralized version, which in this case is GitHub, and your computer that you're working on, in this case, HYR-SENSE, we call that pushing and pulling. So if you're on your computer and you want to get stuff from GitHub, then we call that pulling. And then if you want to send stuff back to GitHub, that's pushing. Conversely, if you're on GitHub and you want to get something from some changes that someone else has made, then you're going to pull. And if you wanted to send changes elsewhere, then you would push. And so a pull request is asking the person who owns some other version of your repository if they would please pull your changes in and merge them with their changes. Right? And so this is a lot more polite and also a lot more functional than simply making changes without asking anybody, especially if you're working in a repository that's not your repository. We also have some other collaboration tools that are useful, but we're not going to focus on quite so much today. So GitHub has something called issues. If we go to the HYR-SENSE repository, for example, we can see that there are a bunch of issues that we have here, and these are, it's kind of like a to-do list. You know, so this, for example, like can have people assigned to it. You can also tag people in the issue, add labels. They have a whole projects thing, which we're not going to get into. And you can have milestones, which have dates attached to them as well. So there's a lot of useful tools around issues. It also helps keep track of when people are making pull requests. Like often they'll reference an issue and say, I'm addressing this issue with this code. Can you please pull it in? And that helps people who are managing the repository to keep track of all of that. There are also milestones, which are essentially issues that have due dates. And then the project management tools, you can make various kinds of displays of the different issues across different repositories that you're working on with a group of people. And so the workflow when you are collaborating with someone on GitHub is typically that someone will create an issue. Either someone maybe using the code says, hey, this didn't work for me like it was supposed to, or someone who's working on the code might say like, hey, I want to fix this down the line, but I don't have time to do it right this instant. And they create an issue, and then someone goes in and addresses that issue, works on it, and then when they're ready to suggest changes, they submit a pull request. And then finally, the people who manage the repository will review the pull request and make sure that it does, in fact, address the issue. And then if so, they'll merge it in. And if not, they might add some comments and review things. So that's kind of a general overview. What questions do you have about GitHub and pull requests specifically, or how you might use this in your organization? Any thoughts or questions on that? Okay. Feel free to interrupt as we go on, but with that, I would like to move on to our activity. So this page is linked in the HYR-SENSE repository. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. And you'll notice that it is a little bit more polished than the other pages that we were looking at just now. And this is step-by-step instructions for how to do this forking and pull request activity. So I would like to just briefly like talk about what forks and branches are and what makes them different. So if I'm in a repository here and I'm on the main page, you can see that I have the option to fork my own copy of this repository right here. I think I've actually done this, and a bunch of HYR-SENSE folks I think have done this as well. And so if I click on this fork, it actually isn't going to allow me to make the fork because I already have one. But had I gone through that workflow, I can show you what my fork looks like. So I chose to name my fork HYR-SENSE eColor with my username on here. And so here we are, and the important thing to notice about a fork is that up here in the upper left-hand corner, it tells me who owns this repository, and I own this repository. So I may not be allowed to make any changes in the HYR-SENSE repository. That's actually not true because I am an owner of this repository as well. But if someone were to come in, even though this is a public repository, you can see right here, before I added you as collaborators, you wouldn't be able to make changes here. And so we tend to use forks when you're not part of the main development team, but you either want to develop the code more for your own personal use, or you want to perhaps write some code to address an issue, and then you're going to make a pull request back to the repository. And so forks are essentially making a copy. We're actually linked still to the previous version, so I can, for example, choose to do this. I'm going to take a screenshot because one of my colleagues was insisting that this was not an option that GitHub gives you to sync the fork, but then I'm going to go ahead and do this. So even since I made this fork like yesterday, there have been 20 changes or commits to the HYR-SENSE repository. And so I can go ahead and sync this fork, update the branch. Okay. And so now I'm up to date with HYR-SENSE. So it's linked back and forth on this repository that's in my account. I can make changes, but still have access to sync with the original if I want to. And then if I want to go in the other direction, then I would have to make a pull request, which is what we're going to practice doing in a moment. Branches are a similar concept, but they're slightly different, mainly in that branches are for collaborators. So no one who's not a collaborator can come in here and make a different branch. If I view all of the branches here, you can see that there's a bunch of different ones. And let's see, if we were to go to the code here, let's see, we were to look at, I'm going to pick this GH pages branch. And the reason I'm picking this one is because I know it's going to be quite different from the main branch. And so we're going to be able to see the difference. So if I click on this branch, you can see it like this is basically a totally different repository. We have all different files. And so I can go back to the main. I could also, for example, select a different branch. It's not quite as obvious what the differences are here, but I can kind of look at the history a little bit and see what changes have been made. Namely this adding eco-stress, right? And so these changes are not in the main branch. And therefore, if I were to download this HYR-SENSE repository and keep it on the main branch, I would not have Eric's eco-stress changes on there. And we'll explore that a little bit in a moment. But I guess the big takeaway here is that both forks and branches are making a kind of working copy of the repository that you can make changes to freely without affecting the main branch, which, you know, in this case is what gets deployed to the website. But forks are for external collaborators and branches are for internal collaborators that are a little bit more trusted. So with that, let's actually do some stuff. So I will send this link again. And I would love to have someone share their screen and walk through this. I can also walk through it myself, but it usually works a little bit better if someone else does, because then I know that you're able to keep up with it. And you can, by the way, if you're watching this online, we also have a video here that takes you through this activity. Okay. All right. So I'm not getting any volunteers. That's okay. So I can show.
I can do it. All right.
Okay. That would be awesome, Sam.
All right. So let's see. I'm sharing my screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. So yeah, so I love that you have the instructions open. Let's go ahead and click on that link to the Easel Education Hometowns GitHub repository, and that should open in a new tab. Okay. And so then the first step here, because you're not a collaborator in this repository, is to go ahead and make a fork. And you can see in the upper right that we have 26 folks who've made forks of this in the past. And then, yeah, if you go to that plus sign, create new fork, then that should be good. You don't necessarily have to change anything here. You can go ahead and create a fork. But you'll notice that now in the very upper left, it says your username rather than that CU Easel EDU, and it also lets you know down there that it is forked from CU Easel EDU hometowns. So now that you have a fork, you can make as many changes as you want to. And we're going to make these changes here on GitHub. So Sam, if you can go and click on the file that says hometowns.csv. It's like the last one, the last file in the list of files down there. Yeah. And you can see a bunch of people have added to this file, and you can go ahead and click the edit button up there, which looks like a pencil. And then head down to that bottom line, and you're gonna add a line in here. So what I recommend doing is copying line 1, which is the headers up here, and pasting that down there, and then you will replace that with what you're going to write. So for the program is sort of important that it be the same for everybody that's in the same program, just in case we want to filter these locations by program later on. So if you can replace program down there in your line with HYR-SENSE in all capitals with a little dash. Yeah, beautiful. And then our dates here, it looks like we're using a year, month, day format. So let's go ahead and put in 2024-06-04 for May, right, June 4th. Yes, that's right. And then this is where it's up to you, Sam, to pick what place you want to put, and you can decide what type of place that is. I think we have so we've got, yeah, where I live now. It's perfect. Fort Defiance, Arizona. Yes, and you have dodged a little bit of a bullet here, which is that, as you probably noticed, if you have extra commas in here, like you might put in between Fort Defiance and Arizona, it's going to interpret that as a new column. So, so that's great to not have that there. If you do want to put a comma in, I believe you can put quotes around it. But yeah, so that looks perfect. So you can have a little bit of a description in there. And then if you want to, let's hold on the image link and the image credit for a moment, and we'll find the latitude and longitude values. Thank you. And in the instructions, I believe we have, do we have a suggestion? Doesn't look like we do have a suggestion for finding the latitude and longitude. I often go to just a Google Maps will often work for this. Because it does a pretty good job of what we call geocoding. We'll talk more about on Thursday, but basically turning text into locations. Okay, so then here you are. So this is kind of a boundary, so you can click on the map somewhere in there, and then you can see in the bottom that latitude and longitude kind of come up. And yeah, I think copying and pasting is the best way. And we'll just notice that we are doing latitude and then longitude, which is the same way that Google does it. So we're good here. And one thing I'm noticing, Sam, is that you have spaces in front of some of your fields. And so because this is intended to be read by a computer, we don't want those spaces in there, even though it makes it harder for people to read. So perfect. And then if you would like to, you could put a link to an image and then an image credit. Haven't quite figured out what we're going to do with these yet, but I generally recommend finding something that's on like the Wikimedia Commons if you can, but just because the URLs are generally pretty easy to deal with, plus they don't disappear on you, so that's kind of nice. But if they don't have any,
I'm sorry, you said the Wikipedia Commons?
yeah. So what I usually do if I don't have an image in mind is I'll search on Wikipedia for what I'm looking for, and then if there's an image on the page that I like, then I'll go ahead and click on that, and it opens up this commons.wikimedia.org. And then yeah, from here, if you click on more details, because we want to get the image itself and not the Wikimedia Commons page. So if you click on more details, then it should show you like that blue button down there. Yeah, so and then if you like copy the link to the Fort_Defiance_Arizona.jpg, then that should be just the image. Beautiful. And the other nice thing about Wikimedia is that they give you like information about like where the image came from. So you might for this one choose to put in like the artist name or something like that. Okay. Right. So really quickly, let's click on, I think that you've done a great job with this, but let's click on that preview button up in the upper left just to make sure. That should let us know if, for example, there's extra changes. Oh, that's interesting. Sometimes there, well, I guess I'm wrong about this. We can't actually preview it that well yet in this interface. So let's go ahead and commit the changes. And then if there are any corrections that we need to make in order to get the formatting of anything to work, then we can do that later. So in this case, you can commit directly to the main branch because you're the only one working on this repository because you've worked it.
Okay.
So that's all good. And okay, so here GitHub is actually telling us that, okay, row 25, that's what we just added. It doesn't have, okay, I see. So it looks like, so there is an extra column, and looking through this, I think it's the description column because you have both Fort Defiance, Arizona, and then comma located on the Navajo Nation. And I think that we only have one column there for the description.
So there's supposed to be another comma? Wait,
So there's supposed to be
so-
one fewer commas. And so we can kind of compare it
fewer,
with the first row.
yeah.
So yeah, so to me, it looks like if you stop for just a moment, I can kind of circle it. To me, it looks like that is the comma that it is complaining about. Because in this particular file, we don't have a name column and a description column. We just have a description column.
Okay, so I just edit that.
Yep. So yeah, edit that, and then you can get rid of that comma.
Oh,
Beautiful.
okay.
Okay. It's still doing kind of the funky preview, but I think if you commit this now, oh yeah, so now it pops up with the table. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good. It'd be nice if it did it before you committed, but it's still pretty useful. Okay. So the next step, now that you've made this change and you're happy with the change, is if you go back to the main page of this repository, I believe. So, or sorry, the code tab up top. If you click on that, I think it will take you other code tab all the way up in the upper left.
Oh.
Yes. So it now says this branch is 2 commits ahead of CU Easel EDU Hometowns main. And so before you saw me using the sync fork button to make sure that to get commits that have been made to the parent repository into my fork. But now you can use the contribute menu in order to create a pull request. There are, by the way, lots of ways to create pull requests, but this is one of the more straightforward ones, I find. If you click on that green open pull request button, then you can add a title here. So you're essentially sending a message, I guess, to me, because I run this repository. And you want me to know that, like, what you changed. In just a couple of words. So you could say something like added Fort Defiance, Arizona, or something like that. Okay. And then let's see. We don't have an issue number for this. However, in the description, you can practice tagging someone. So go ahead and tag me, which you'll do by typing @ecolor. Yep, there it is. And you don't necessarily, I mean, often you would have more in the description, but this is a fairly straightforward pull request. But what that'll do is it'll send me a message saying that that you have submitted this pull request and that I should go in and merge it. So with that, you can go ahead and create the pull request. It's going to check. Okay, so it's saying that merging is blocked. And that is, I believe, just because you are not authorized to merge. So I want to pause there for a moment. And Cynthia, were you able to follow along with some of this?
So the only part about the images, that image capture, you went online with Wikipedia. What was the link that you all were utilizing? Was it just for images or was it something specific?
Yeah, so Wikipedia maintains this something called the Wikimedia Commons, which has a bunch of freely available images in there, where you can find the links and you can also find how to credit it. And so that's why you don't have to use an image from the Wikimedia Commons, but the link that we used was a link to the image from Wikimedia Commons.
Just insert it where it needs to be.
Yeah, so you want something, whether or not you're using the Wikimedia Commons, you want a link that that when you load it in your web browser, you only see the image. So I can show briefly. So this is one that we used, and we just see this image with a black background. Whereas this page, if we were to use this link, that's not going to work the same way because the page has all this other content on it. Let's see. Oh, they also have this this useful thing that shows you the file URL, and their version of the attribution as well. So you could click on the use this file and copy the URL and the attribution directly from here. Does that make a little more sense?
Oh, yes.
Great. Beautiful. So, before we take a break, I am going to do a little demo about what it looks like to review and then merge code on GitHub. Oh, I actually want to, I have too many tabs. I think I want this one. Oh, I guess I had the one I wanted before anyway. Okay. So here I am on GitHub, and I'm just gonna make that a little smaller so my tools aren't covering it up. This is still my fork, so I want to go over to the HYR-SENSE repository that's owned by CU Easel. This was the original one. And then oh wait, sorry, we're using hometowns right now. That's why there are no pull requests. Okay. So I'm gonna go over to the hometowns repository. Okay, CU Easel EDU, hometowns. We're looking pretty good. We've got a couple more forks now, right? And 2 pull requests. Okay, so I have Sam and Jason's. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to merge both of these pull requests. So when I click on the pull request as someone who has the ability to merge, I have this green merge button saying that there's no conflicts with the base branch. I can also go over here and check out what change was actually made. I could also review the changes. So if, for example, I was looking at this and I don't know, maybe my tiny quibble is please remove the space in front of the date. So I can go ahead and then start a review, and then I could go in here and I have multiple options. So I can comment, which doesn't really do anything. I can approve, saying that it's ready to merge, or I could request changes. So just to show how this works, because I probably could go in here and make this change myself and that would be fine. But just to show how this works, I'm going to go ahead and request some changes from Jason. Oh, and actually, I also am going to suggest that we use a dash or a dash instead of an underscore, just so that we all match. Okay, so I went and I requested those changes. So I'm gonna go back here and go over to Sam's while I wait for those updates. And this looks great. So I can also write kind of general comments in here. And I can tag Sam. And I can approve it. This repository doesn't require approval, but it's possible to make repositories that do. And now as in kind of this project manager role, I can go in here and I can merge the pull request. I'm going to confirm that merge, and it'll take a moment. And now if I go back to the code and I look at our hometowns.csv, I have now Sam's entry right here. Okay. So I'm going to head over back to the pull requests here. Okay, looks like Jason has very quickly responded to my request. Beautiful. And so now we have HYR-SENSE with a dash and no space in front of the date. So I will go ahead and review it and approve it. But now I often end up with conflicts if like two people are editing in the same couple lines of a file. So Git usually is pretty good about merging stuff if you're working on different files and if you're working on even pretty different parts of the same file. But in this case, it's probably confused because it doesn't know whether to put Sam's line first or Jason's line first, because they were both put into row 25 in the changed file. So I'm going to go in here to resolve conflicts. And you'll notice we have Oglala Lakota College in here, and we have Fort Defiance in here. And in between, we have these kind of funky arrows and then the equal signs and then the arrows. So this is telling us that the content between the equal signs and the left arrows, that's the content from the pull request that I'm looking at right now. So Jason's pull request. And then the content between these other two is the content that's in the main branch. And if we were working in branches, these would have the different branch names in here, but both of you are working in main branches, just in different repositories. So we don't see that. And so in this case, all I really need to do is go through and delete these extra lines in here. I also like to delete the last line. And then I can go up here and mark as resolved. And sometimes it can be a little bit more complicated than that, merging changes, but this interface allows us to see them really easily. All right, and so this is going to be a commit under my name. And now I can merge. Okay. Back to the code. And now both of those entries are in here. So as other folks add to this, I'll go ahead and merge those pull requests. Hopefully we can get a couple of locations so that on Thursday we can map people's locations. And you're welcome to put as many locations as you would like in of different types of locations. But yeah, that is our forking activity. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. Are there any questions about forking or anything that we did? Okay.
Sorry, not speaking up. That's the hardest thing. I feel for you. I'm teaching more of these classes online, and
Well, it's a lot of pressure on you guys.
oh, it's painful for you too, because I don't know. I feel like a
This
newscaster.
is why we are so excited to be in person. It's gonna be great.
I just wanted to say is this addresses some of the questions I've been having. I've used GitHub, but just for myself, just because I'm very fearful about losing things in the past. So it was kind of just a space to put my own stuff. and not understanding coming in the difference between a fork and a branch, being afraid. I mean, that word issue, it's a scary word. It's like, oh gosh, I don't want to, I'm all good with it. I mean, I don't got an issue. I appreciate you sharing, that word. And then also with dealing with pull requests. So I appreciate getting some ideas about this a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, excellent. Glad that is helpful. Sweet. So yeah, let's take maybe 5-minute bio break. Stand up, do some jumping jacks, whatever you do. And then we're gonna do a very similar activity, but for branches instead. See you back
sounds good.
here at
Thank you.
quarter after. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, so we're gonna do something pretty similar, but with branches. Could I have another volunteer to share a screen as we go through this? Okay. Or I can show it too.
I can do it if
Yeah.
nobody else wants to.
Go for it, Jason.
Somebody's got to be next, though. Hey,
This is the problem is when I show it, I've done it 20 times, so I go too fast. So, but yeah, if you don't mind.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I'm at here. Just a sec here.
Oh yeah.
Also too many
this
things open,
here-
obviously.
Okay, you can.
Okay, so I'm here. Is this the right place?
Yep. Yeah, so we're gonna head over to the proposed
Oh.
changes to GitHub
Try
repository.
this again here.
What did
Am I in the right one here?
so you're in
Or is it this
page
one?
before, so it's in the left-hand column.
Oh, this one?
Oh, that's the forking activity. So
Okay.
then
Go
the other link in
back.
there is the
Next one.
activity. Yes, beautiful. We're there. Okay. So, oh, and Jason, I probably need to add you as an editor, as a contributor also. Let me do that. Because you will not be able to make a branch unless you are a collaborator.
Oh, it's just.
Let's see. Oh, can you remind me what your GitHub username is? I know I just saw it, but
Yeah, I'll pop it in the chat here.
you did. Okay. Okay. Beautiful. So I have added you. And then I tried to get the correct link in this textbook page for us, but I had a small error and wrote over all of the pages that I rendered. So I will instead stick the link in the chat. This is the link to the HYR-SENSE repository. So you can also find it by going to GitHub and searching for HYR-SENSE, or by typing in that github.com/cu-easel/HYR-SENSE. And you'll end up there. Okay, beautiful. So, there's a couple of ways that we can go about this. But it turns out that when you're working on GitHub, if you make changes, it will make a branch automatically for you. But I wanted to do it a little bit more explicitly in this case, because you guys may be making new branches on Cyverse as well. And so the interface is going to look a little different. And it's not going to automatically create a branch for you. So, Jason, can you go over to that spot where it says 9 branches right next to main?
Here.
Yep, that's the one. And then can you make a new branch? It's the green button. Okay, And often we name branches after features. In this case, you're like adding your information, so you could name it after yourself. It doesn't matter too much what it is, as long as we can kind of tell what's going on. So yep, go ahead and create the new branch. And then go ahead and click on the highlight, the like blue branch name.
Here?
Here, yeah. And I believe that should take you back to the code page, but in your branch. Yep. So this is like kind of the home page of the repository, but yes, exactly. It says your branch name there, CJ Tenant instead of main. And so we want to keep an eye on that and make sure that that we're always working in that branch. So next what you'll do is you'll go into the docs folder and then resources and then participant bios.md. And I've put a table in here. I think we'll just go with that. So if you, and then, yeah, edit this file just like we did with the other one. The table is going to look a little different because instead of being a CSV file, it's a markdown table. But I've put there an extra row. And so you can go ahead and fill that out with name, organization, GitHub username, and if you have it, a link to your portfolio. And any of these things,
I don't think I
oh,
have
did
a
I didn't put quite enough
chart
bar
one.
today. All right. We'll have that fixed for, well, you just fixed it for the next people, so that's great. Okay. And then here, I think if you preview, it will actually show you whether the table worked, hopefully.
Okay, I'm not sure how to preview.
Oh, so there's a preview button right next to the edit button in the upper left.
Oh, okay.
So that lets you see how Markdown will render.
I've got commit changes. Oh, here we are. Right here, left. Oh, nice.
All right, so that looks good. We've got a row, it's all rendered properly. So you can go ahead and commit those changes. Yep, and then you're adding that stuff in, yeah. So that's great. The extended descriptions are good, but it's nice to have as much information as you can in the title, because if you recall, when I was looking at that page with the pull requests, it was really just showing me the title of them. And so that makes it easier on my end to kind of tell what's going on. But of course, if you need to write something longer, then the description is a good place to do that. Okay, so if you now click on the code tab again, it should say, yep, CJ Tenant had recent pushes 32 seconds ago. And then it gives you a button that says compare and pull request. Again, this is like generally the easiest way to create a pull request. So you can go ahead and click on that. Yeah, you don't necessarily need to do anything else. You could tag people. You can also request reviewers or assign. But for right now, go ahead and create that pull request. And then okay, we're checking to see can merge automatically. I don't You may have permission to merge. I don't think that we've protected it yet. But I was hoping that Cynthia and Sam, you could take a look and like maybe add some comments. There's not a ton to comment about, but you could explore that reviewing interface a little bit. So yeah, Jason, if I can take the screen back, then I'll kind of show what that looks like again. I think I can, oh, there we go. Okay. So here we are. Got some pull requests. Beautiful, Sam and Jason. And so when you're working with a group, you can go ahead and go in and leave some comments. So yep, and Sam has already done that here, leaving a comment in kind of the main page. You can also leave line by line comments in here. So I mean, there's really not too much to do, but we can go in here and say, looks great. And I'm going to leave that just as a comment for now. We probably should add some rules about requiring approval or protect our main branch. I may do that later today.
Would you be able to show how, you were commenting on the line by line?
Yeah, so if you go over and click on files changed, and then kind of hover over these rows, then you can click that plus button, and that allows you to leave a line by line comment. So, all right, if we're going to be
Okay,
super
here, thank you.
picky, we could say right, so we could do something like this, and then if we go back over to the conversation, it shows my comment, but it also shows this. This is called a diff for difference. So it's showing that like this line is gone now, and then we have this new line. So yeah, and then so yeah, take a minute to all right, we've got Cynthia commenting. Excellent. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and merge these in. Looks like everybody has been able to comment. And then I'm gonna delete the branch as well in this case. So we can see some of the comments here. We now have some conflicts here. I wonder if this is anything different. It's not really. Okay, so all right. So this looks good. I can't look at the previewer. I think it doesn't matter, but I am gonna put these spaces in. And it's not letting me mark it as resolved until I've deleted all of that kind of extra stuff that's there. well, maybe it was gonna let me do that. You want to make sure to get rid of all that stuff because it kind of gunks up the file otherwise. And I'm clicking on merge and confirm merge. So if you're working in a group on something, then probably what you'll want to do is for each kind of what I guess like the typical practice in software development is to have what are called sprints. They're usually about 2 weeks, but if you're working intensively like we are with the HYR-SENSE, then maybe it looks more like 1 day. And then at the end of the sprint, the idea is that everything works. You may not have like all of the features that you want, but everything runs. And then someone goes through, and usually that person is called a project manager, and merges everybody's changes together and checks to make sure that that the code still runs with everybody's changes merged together. So if you do work in kind of a software company, it's like a big event that happens every couple of weeks where like, you know, maybe 20 people, maybe like 100 people are like making changes to stuff, and then they have to make sure that everything works together, right? So this is a little mini view into that. So if I head back here, then let's see. If I look in docs and my resources. Oh, and I see there's another pull request in there. I'll probably leave it for right now. We'll go back to it, but for right now we do have these first 2 in here. Sorry, it pulled up the wrong window for me. Okay. So those changes did go through, and then Cynthia, we've got your pull request here. So other folks can practice commenting on that as well. And then we'll get it all merged in, hopefully before the event starts next week, and you guys can access this. I did have a small error in the website. So I'm gonna go here to the make docs, and because I had participants bios instead of participant bios in here. Oops, I need to edit the file. So little typo. That's why I was getting that 404 error early on. I'm going to commit this directly to the main branch. To keep things simple for right now. And then I can go check on the actions and see what's happening with the page republishing. And so this is telling me that this is running right now, and I can actually click on that and watch it do stuff. It's installing some things right now, and that's a little overwhelming. I'm just let it run for a moment. And then once this is done running, we can check our web page and make sure that it has updated. Sometimes it also, nope, it is still running. Sometimes it also doesn't update immediately. Okay, so here we go. We're all run. And then I'm gonna go open up the page again. And hopefully now when I click on participants, oops. Did it put it in here? It's still not there. Okay. Um. So I'm gonna search in here for participant and just see if there's anywhere else that file name. Huh. I was pretty sure that I changed that. All right. Oh, I'm also in like a weird branch up here. I want to go to main. Okay, resources, participant bios. And then I need to make sure that that matches up. Participant bios. Okay. So that's no longer there, which tells me that sometimes you actually like, oh, there it is. Okay. So I think I just hadn't reloaded the page fully. So if you're working on your personal site and something's not showing up, it can be worth running like a more full reload. So the way I usually do that is, depending on the computer, it's like Command-Shift-R or Control-Shift-R. On my computer, it's Command-Shift-R, and you can see that when I run that, it kind of reloads. But it also forces it to reload some stuff that it might otherwise not. So it can be, your web browser does something called caching, where it keeps parts of pages on your computer so that when you go back to them, you don't have to download everything again. And so that can be sometimes a problem when you're developing your own web page. But in any case, we now have this nice table here, and hopefully we can get everybody in here, which would be great, and maybe get some of these personal pages up there as well. So all right. So the last 30 minutes, I mean, we kind of did this reviewing other people's pull requests. The last kind of thing that I wanted to do was to talk about something called checking out. But again, we're not able to access HYR-SENSE today. So I'm going to talk about it briefly on GitHub. We've actually already done this. So if I make my way back to the HYR-SENSE repository, so the way that we check out a branch or a commit on GitHub is with this this menu. We can select branches and tags. Right, so again, if I view all the branches, I have deleted the one. Oh, we still have one here. So so if we look here, then like what we've done now is we've accessed the version of this repository that Cynthia was working on and had made that change to. And so if I head into that participant bios file here, while I am on this C Sanders CMN, then we can see this this change that Cynthia has made.
And I may have to add the user ID, but we can do that.
Yes, and it also looks like there may be it looks like there may be a small formatting problem. Not exactly sure. It may be spaces in here. It does look like, oh, and it looks like maybe Cynthia, you accidentally wrote over the line here, line 4 here, where it had the pipes and then 3 dashes in between. And so that's important for telling Markdown that it is a table. But that's yeah, that's at any rate, we've checked out Cynthia's version here, and we can see it. We can also check out tags. So this tag is from, it looks like a little while back. Looks like the most recent changes were like last month for this version. We'll probably tag it again before we get started, and maybe another time when we finish. The reason for tags, there's 2 reasons to use tags. Well, maybe 3 reasons to use tags. So one reason to use tags is a little bit like that comic we were looking at. Like sometimes you're editing something and you're like, oh man, I really don't want to lose this version. And so a tag can be super useful in that situation. You can keep a particular version like pristine and go and make a ton of other changes and not have to worry about not being able to find your way back to that version if you need to. And so that is what I recommend if you ever are feeling the urge to copy a file and keep 2 versions of it in your repository. And this is a very hard impulse to overcome. But I strongly recommend that you instead create a tag in GitHub so that you can still access that code in exactly the same version that you were looking at it in, but you can freely make changes and you're not cluttering up the repository with multiple versions of the same file. Reason number 2 to make a tag is that in order to have, I have to check out the main branch again to see this. In order to have this DOI here, which we're doing through a site called Zenodo, Zenodo uses tags in order to archive particular versions so that it can create what's called a persistent link, or digital object identifier, DOI. So if you're ever wanting to make a persistent link to something, then you'll need to tag it in GitHub. And the 3rd reason that you might want to make a tag is to make something called a release. Releases are certainly are a little bit more of a software thing, but I'll just plant the seed of this a little bit. Sometimes I think there's certain kind of data files that I sometimes recommend people to put in releases because they're too big to upload to GitHub in the repository. And in any case, you don't really want to track changes on most data files. But if you upload it to a version, then you end up with a URL to it, it would appear here below these source code URLs. You can upload a version of it and get a URL that you can then access in your code, and keep kind of medium-sized data files here. We'll be keeping all your data in HYR-SENSE for right now, and I think probably goes without saying you don't want to release some, like, any sensitive data on GitHub or any other not secured platform. So those are some reasons to use tags. We can also check out individual commits. So if I go in here into the commits, and this is where that commit message is really important. So like, say I wanted to go back to, after I had merged Jason's commit and before I merged Sam's commit, I can head back here. This is showing me a diff here between the previous version and then this new commit. We can also see them kind of next to each other if we want. And we can add comments just like we can in the code review. And then finally, we can browse the repository at this point in the history. Right, so this is this kind of random string of characters and numbers, going on here. But we know from looking at the commit list that this message corresponds to what was changed here. And so then if we go ahead and, not the notebooks. If we go ahead and stay with this checked out and then go into that participant bios page, then we'll be able to see, again, this intermediate version. And so we can do this on GitHub using the menus. You can also do this on HYR-SENSE, which unfortunately we won't be able to show today, but if it comes up that that's something that you want to do, you'll know that that's possible, and you can definitely ask any of the folks at the workshop how to do that if you're having trouble figuring it out on HYR-SENSE. So that is all I have. Any questions, comments, concerns, celebrations from y'all?
Nice job, Elsa.
Thank you, Jason.
By the way, did you
Yeah,
just to tell everybody else, last month I got to visit Boulder and saw Elsa and heard Elsa was a beekeeper, and so I sent her an insane
not yet.
soon to be beekeeper, and so I sent her an insane podcast about the recent movie The Beekeeper, and I was just curious, were you able to listen to that podcast?
I have not yet.
Okay.
I have been I've been moving so much soil and bricks in my garden.
Oh, nice. Well, that's an even better thing to do is gardening. That's great.
Yeah, it's very exciting. My house is, the backyard is just like bare dirt with like tons of glass and beer bottle caps in it.
Okay. Are you doing
Got a
raised
lot of work.
beds as a first step, or are you gonna try to?
Yeah, I'm making some like terraced raised beds.
Nice.
Fancy thing. So we'll see if it works. But
I think that's great.
anyway. Sam, did you wanna jump in with anything? I saw your
Oh, no, thank you. That was great. Learned a lot.
All right, thank you guys. I'll be back on Thursday. We're gonna do we will be able to get onto HYR-SENSE. We're gonna practice hooking up with GitHub again. Hopefully it's gonna be a lot easier on Thursday. Eric is working. I don't know if you guys have met Eric yet, but he's our developer and administrator. Anyway, he's been working really hard on making that process more seamless. So that you can like log in with your username and password, hopefully, instead of the certificate stuff. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna write some code in Python. We're gonna make some interactive maps that you could choose to put up on your personal website if you want, and we're gonna do a couple of other plots with some of the example data that comes with the Python libraries we're going to be using a lot. And then we're all going to be here. So very exciting. All right. I'm going to stop the recording.